Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we're looking at Laramide resources. This was a stock analysis request from one of the followers, and I wanted to let you know that anyone can make these requests and I will most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. Now on this chart we unfortunately don't have a 5-wave structure that has formed to the upside, and the best I can do is really consider this an A wave up. Yeah, it could really be still a wave 1 to the upside, but based on the proportions I just have a slight preference to consider this an A wave, and in the end I'm telling you it doesn't really cause much of a difference in terms of the overall expectations for support. Yeah, it would basically be the same probabilities to reverse here to the upside, but it would change the expectations in terms of the structure that we are tracking here to the upside, and it changes the expectations of the expected target. Yeah, now based on this wave A up, I can look for an area of support here for the wave B correction between the 99-cent level all the way down to the 5-cent level, where so far we have pushed into the 61.8% retracement a couple of times, and each time we reacted even more strongly. Yeah, in this initial reaction we have formed a three-wave move to the upside, which clearly resulted in another low, but then another three-wave move to the upside, and now this was even more significant, where I may actually be able to consider this wave B correction complete in something like an ABC pattern. Yeah, I have enough waves. The structure does look appropriate for an ABC pattern, where this would have probably been a flat correction with a wave C ending in an ending diagonal to the downside. Yeah, but we do have the 5-wave structure complete. Now the unfortunate part is that from this current low we only have a 3-wave pattern to the upside. Yeah, this is most likely an ABC structure. Yeah, probably like this actually, ABC, in which case we could still be tracking this as a 1-2 setup, and it could even be part of the larger wave C. It is not a problem in those aspects, but I have to say, since we only have 3 waves, it is not a high probability setup. Once again, sure, it can work out, but it doesn't suggest to us that we have the high probabilities that we are looking for when we are looking for the initial 5-wave move to the upside. Yeah, and in this case we can track here an internal area of support, and in fact I will even remove here this one from the background, because as long as we hold here this internal area of support, it is not too relevant. We can maybe shift it to the side. Yeah, probably the best thing to do right now. But in the end, if we are to push here into a follow-up wave 3 to the upside, I am watching for support between the 44-cent level all the way down to the 17-cent level. Now if it really is to push in once more, I wouldn't be surprised. However, from this current wave 1 top, I can consider this pattern an ABC structure to the downside complete. We do have 3 waves, and we don't really need any additional lows to consider a bottom available for us in this wave 2. And not only that, but from this supposed wave 2 low, we can actually track a few 5-wave moves to the upside, where here we have a 1, 2, 3, 4th and a 5th. That is pretty much quite nice, quite valid, and we can even look here for the internal supposed area of support, where clearly we held the 78.6% retracement at the 42-cent level. Then once again, here we have a 3-wave correction to the downside, but then another 5-wave move to the upside. If we want, we can check the area of support for here an internal 1-2 setup. Yeah, a 1-2. So previously we were checking a 1-2, now we are checking this as a 1-2. Again, we pushed into the 78.6% retracement and got our reaction to the upside. And once more, we may be able to track this movement to the upside also as a 5-wave structure, not necessarily as pretty, but not uncommon since it is on an even smaller time frame. So realistically, we may have a series of 1-2 setups in this area. Now, even with these structures, we need to be aware that this correction in a wave 2 could easily extend and form a new low. Yeah, this could also unfold in the end as a triangle, where these structures don't need to be considered as 5 waves. They do look appropriate, and they do increase the probabilities for us to consider that this structure is going to work out, but we need to hold here the relevant areas of support internally. And here the latest one, we can check it in a moment, but I also wanted to tell you, okay, this could be an ABC pattern, in which case we could expect another low within the wave 2. That is what we need to watch out for. And a first signal would be for me that this correction is actually done to break here above the 92 cent level. If we manage to break here above this top, I would have quite a good signal that this structure is likely going to succeed. But if we don't, and maybe we only break above this top at the 83 cent level, well, it may be just a reset, and this could turn still into something. So an A wave down, and in the wave B we get an A, B, C, D, E. So it could still extend to the sideways for quite a while, and then after the wave E is complete, we would still encounter a follow-up wave C from the larger structure to the downside. Yeah, this would complete the wave B triangle, and we could follow afterwards in the wave C still. So it wouldn't be enough for me to determine that this structure, this correction is complete to break here above this high. Yeah, clearly not this high, and then not this high, but this one. The 92 cent level is very important for me to see broken for a signal that, yeah, this structure is going to succeed. Now, the latest area of support that we can track here is here a possible internal 1-2 setup, and in this case we can even draw here the area of support and the count, and once again we have pushed into the 78.6% retracement, but I really want to see a stop to these lower highs and higher lows that keep forming on this chart, and I don't want to see here another 1-2 setup. Yeah, the more the larger the series of 1-2 setups we get, the increased probabilities that this structure will not work out, because even in a bullish interpretation, we might not in the end succeed in forming a series of waves to the upside based on this idea of a series of 1-2 setups. Yeah, in the end it could be just an A wave up, and then we get a B wave sideways triangle in an A, B, C, D, E, and then we start the actual wave C to the upside, and we get a much smaller movement. So don't get too excited necessarily, especially as we build here additional 1-2 setups, because this isn't necessarily all that bullish. Yeah, we need to see some evidence that this structure is going to play out, and continuously forming lower highs and higher lows isn't going to provide us too much of an increase in any probabilities that this structure is going to work out. Now, we can maybe use some trend lines in this area to determine when we may come to a stop, yeah, when we may head towards the apex of this supposed triangle that could be forming. And yeah, since we are in a contraction, we can look for further sideways movement, and once this does push in towards the end and it breaks, we might see a quite significant sharp movement. Yeah, it could be up or down. I'm not trying to guess right now in which direction it will go. Based on the internal structures, I could argue that the 1-2 setups could work, but we must hold here the relevant areas of support. And what is quite relevant in my opinion is that here the first level of support, that if this one breaks, well, it would be a signal that the secondary one will break. Yeah, this 1-2 setup will also likely break afterwards, and if this one breaks, well, I would need to consider that even this one is likely to break as well. So if we form here lower lows instead of continuing in this sideways pattern in higher lows and lower highs, it will be quite a good signal to us that we should maybe consider an exit strategy, because the risk would be increasing. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.